whole topic of this conversation is going to be life is a marathon. You got to learn how to run that race. You can't just strap up some sneakers and run a marathon.
Yes.
You've got to train
Yes.
for that bitch. And you
Yes.
got to train diligently. And you got to
Yes.
educate yourself on how to
Mhm.
eat, how to run, how to pace yourself.
Yes.
And life is the same thing. Life and marathons are the perfect metaphor for each other. Relationships that last and marathons in life are all tied in to the same metaphor, which is, are we just going with the flow and winging it, which so many people do?
Oh, God.
Or are we making a concerted effort to learn the inner workings of our specific relationship?
Hey, guys, it is Allison. I am the host of your show, Alison Answers Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey, guys, how are you today? It is Allison from Alison Answers and Lager Counseling Services. I have Sean Martin. As you can see, Sean Martin here as my guest. Sean is a fellow New Yorker. He is such a light in this world. This man is a person he's a guy to listen to. So I want to encourage anyone who's just listening in, if you haven't listened to Sean yet, you have to check him out, because any reel he has out there, any words that he speaks are going to add value to your life. And you're going to find out about him as a human being and as a businessman. But mostly, I really want you to just put on your seatbelts and listen to the nuggets that he will share. Because, I just want to say to you, Sean, and this is just shooting from my hip. Honestly, I try to figure out what it is about you. And I think there's like a steadiness to your voice, and there's like a groundedness that when you speak, like I feel like there's like it's just infused with wisdom, and it feels safe and kind and good and authentic. And there's something I know that you're going to make very big strides and help so many people like you already are. So I'm just so grateful to have you today, really. Thank you for being here.
Wow. I thank you for having me. That is an amazing and flattering introduction. So thank you, Allison. I appreciate you. I appreciate that so much. And yeah, I mean, luckily early on, I've learned how to take compliments, and that is a great one.
Yeah.
I
Well,
feel
it couldn't
really
say it if it
blessed.
wasn't true.
I feel really blessed. And just this morning, ironically enough, I was listening, and every morning I'll listen to some pep talk motivation videos. And this morning I came across Denzel Washington saying that, you know, this gift that God gives us is not ours. It's for the world. And for whatever reason, the universe, God, Mother Earth, whatever you believe in, and I believe in so many things, has seen fit to bless me with the gift of gab. And despite me knowing that over 20 years ago, I had that gift of public speaking and impacting people and getting their attention and having them hang on some of the words I speak, it wasn't time. And I had to go through life, and I had to get real world wisdom before I personally felt comfortable enough to step into my life's purpose, which I do believe is to be a leader and to make a difference and make change and make impact. And not just in the lives of, my family first and foremost, and the people that I love the most, but in the world. And thank you. That's just an affirmation that I know I'm on the right path. And, I keep getting complimented, and I keep taking them with as much grace and humility as I can, because like the Denzel clip said, this gift is not mine. It was given to me to share with the world. And I intend to do so. And for the first time in my life, I'm comfortable enough doing that, and I feel like I can go out there and make a difference. And I have absolute certainty
Yeah, isn't
that
that
it is
incredible?
going to
Yes,
happen. And,
yes,
that only came with time, wisdom, and quite frankly, security and getting the chip off my shoulder. I had to make sure that my home was secure, that my marriage was secure, that my children were secure. And now I can go out there and do what I feel that I was called to do with 100% confidence.
yeah. I want to highlight that just because there's like key elements to you that I think really stand out. And it's like your love of family. And then you have this humility, which a lot of people, a lot of young men and women who are coming up are not, they're wanting this like immediate, result. And like, I'm like a 30-year overnight success. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like that thing that people don't realize the grind behind or the like, the struggle that we've all had. And that's where we learn everything. So there's like a couple of things I wanted to ask you and
Sure.
because there's a lot to you and and that and I'm saying it again, but the things that are to you what reminds me is like values and dignity and standards and family and God, like, and, and using your struggles to become, something for others, which is like what I see you as. So I just would like to hear about all of that, right? It's a big
Sure.
question. We could
I'm,
start
I'm,
with your love of family.
I'm glad to share. Well, love of family for me starts with love. I was raised, as I share all the time, by a loving single mother who just loved on me to death. It was the one thing I always had as a kid. We didn't have money per se. We were comfortable. We had a roof over our head. We had food on the table every night, but we didn't have luxuries. I say, I didn't get on an airplane till I was 20 years old. And it was one of those discovery flights in a single engine Cessna. So I had never been on vacation. Um, I don't want to speak out of turn, but probably the furthest beach I'd ever been to was Jones Beach or maybe a beach in New Jersey, but never been to Florida. I'd never been on vacation till I was in my early 20s.
Wow.
So that love is the most profound thing that I have to draw from. And it has translated into my desire to build and stick with, this beautiful family that I've been blessed enough to have. And that starts with my wife and loving my wife and having been fortunate enough to meet my wife only 9 months before I went to prison, which is something that I've shared with you before.
I
And I'm
wasn't
sharing
sure if you
more
were going to share
publicly.
that.
Yeah, well, with her permission, I decided that that's the most powerful part of my story.
Yes.
And I asked her permission to share that and put it in my book and to share it in my talks and to share it in my podcast. And there was a lot of fear, as I discussed with you personally, about that. Because of people that I do business with and how would they look at me? And, I stand a lot to lose. I've built a nice business and there are some people that may turn away from me because of it. But if they're judging me on something that I did before they knew me, 15 years ago, and they made their decision today based on that, then it wasn't meant for us to continue doing business anyway.
Yeah.
So again, that security only comes with knowing that I have love at home. I have something to come back to. Should I get slighted or should I fall on my face? I have, this beautiful woman, these beautiful children here waiting for me every day to
Love
wake up
that. Yes.
and be their light and be their gravity and, just like their mind. So family or the desire for such necessarily something that came naturally to me. I grew up with a single mom. There weren't many successful relationships. I do have aunts and uncles who were married. Now that I think about it, only my godparents, because, we're Hispanic and like Italians and there's godparents and, you you don't see too many successful marriages. And I only have one aunt and uncle, my godparents, that are still married after, 30 plus years, maybe even more. God bless them. And to build on this story, I was down at my mother's in Florida one day, and she lives in this 4-story complex and, one of these senior communities. And my aunt and uncle that I just mentioned happened to live in the same community. And they came over, I think it was New Year's or Christmas for the holidays, to her apartment. And I was out back, and it's very dark, and you can see into all the windows of the neighboring building. And there's like a man-made lake in between the two building complexes. And I looked up and I saw nothing but single people.
Wow.
And these are seniors. So they're in, the last couple of decades or even years of their life. And I didn't see not one couple. And it just so happened that I came back in, and my godparents, God bless them, were dancing and having drinks and just cracking jokes and having a good time. And it dawned on me at that point, like, life is meant to be shared with someone else. And along the way, there are going to be countless bumps, countless obstacles to overcome. But it takes work, like anything else. So I didn't necessarily have it in my mind that I was going to be married, or, my marriage is not without problems and obstacles, but we fight to overcome them because we understand that love trumps everything. And I always say, I've never wanted to quit something so much in my life as I have marriage. And I used to say that negatively.
Yeah.
And the difference now is I realize that if you're running a marathon, and this is a big boy frame, so I'm not one for running long distances, but the mentality of it is it's 26 miles to run, and you're going to want to quit at certain points along that race, but you keep pushing and you keep going and you keep fighting through it. And I think marriage and lifelong relationships of any kind are that way. But we made a vow to each other, and it's not necessarily under God or under civil contract. We made a vow to each other to love each other through thick and thin. And I would be remiss to say that those things didn't come into doubt at points in our relationship for both of us. But we always fight our way back because we do truly have a love that is real and deep, and that connection is it's worth it. In the end, it harkens back to my childhood, and love overcomes virtually everything. LOVE. I've been saying that a lot lately, and I mean it tremendously. And I see it in my kids' face. I see it in their, in their waking up and just being lit up from the time that they wake up in the morning knowing that they're safe and they're loved and they have everything they need here. And in the end, it's complicated. I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but because we've been able to obtain a certain level of comfortability and financial success, we have the luxury of working on ourselves individually and as a couple, and truly blessed. So like I said, because of that upbringing, tying into relieving those external stressors and those being handled, I now have the freedom, the luxury, and the wherewithal to go out there and give of myself. And yeah, that's how we found ourselves here today. We met at Matt's Unmute event in New York.
Yes.
And as you say, and I've been using your term, I love it, we became fast friends.
Yes, we did.
Because energies connect.
Yes.
For
sure. I would just love to comment on something you just said, because I think it's fascinating, because I've been moving toward this focus on marriage and relationships, because I feel this desire I feel like we've all been sold a bill of goods about life, mediocrity, about not striving, about all of these, about not finding our greatness, and I think that we've been taught from a very young age. I always say from, 0 to 7 years old, we're in a theta brainwave, we're in a hypnotic state, and we learn, and it's just bombards us that that relationships are adversarial, that they don't last. we're taught that, cartoons now show that men are stupid, that they're clueless. They used to show that women were dumb and can't drive. We're taught at such a young age, this opposition between men and women, and not being fully in our, and not really staying, like the art of staying, like Jim Rohn talks about, just stay. No one stays anymore, like to an end of a game or they don't see things through. So when you just started sharing that, one of the things I've been doing is asking people who've been on my podcast individually to bring their spouse on and talk about what they've done, how they've succeeded together. So
Sure.
I would love to do that with you guys if your wife ever wants.
Yeah, I'll ask her. I'd be honored to have a forum like that with you.
Yes.
As
it's
a
a movement, Sean,
Yeah.
to change the world. Like, we're seeing things inaccurately and it's not taught in school.
I used to say to one of my best friends when I would call him and vent, or I was having an issue with the wife, and so much of it is perspective. Let me lead with that. Problems, we make them much bigger than they are.
Yes.
And I used to tell him, because he's a single guy. He's the friend that we just say he's going to be single for life.
Oh.
He's playing the field for life. And, that's his journey, not judging. We joke about it and whatever, what have you. But my point was, I always used to tell him it would be easier to leave. When things really hit the fan or the doubts really creeped in on my relationship at different times, not just once or twice, different times throughout our relationship, it would be easier to leave. And I think that speaks to what you just mentioned. And I also think it speaks to people in general, that they will give in, maybe not at the first sign of strife or obstacle, but the second and the third and the fourth and the 10th. There's no mistake that 50%, or maybe it's even more now,
60,
of
I
people
think.
in this country, it's probably lopsided now to more people getting divorced than staying married. There's a reason for that. And listen, there's genuine reasons to probably get divorced.
Yeah.
And I just don't see it. And, traditionally speaking, even though I grew up in a single mother household, my children need me. My children need us.
Yes.
And I'm sure there are parents out there that split and they're able to do it healthily. So I'm not knocking everybody's journey is their own. But mine is to stay and fight.
Yes.
And I am fortunate enough to have love as my anchor. And not everybody has that. So I could be speaking to someone right now that they're not hearing me because they don't have love. They don't know what that love is. But since I do, I know it's worth it.
Yep.
And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I've been very fortunate.
There's a scripture in the Bible that says, what God has joined together, let no man separate. And what I have said to people.
Second time this week I heard that. So
you really, but you know what I think about that? Think about it for a minute. There's so many marriages that we see, doing marriage counseling, that God did not join them together. You know what I mean? So it's like, so they're following this like rule that they were not. There is no way that abusing one another or not being where you belong or being aligned with who you really are is of value, right? But when you describe that love, I know that love, that feeling, that it trumps it. It makes everything nicer. Like, even it softens the edges, right? So may I ask you about since you're coming out about your experience, your struggles, when you were younger, I would love for you to share, just so anybody who is having a hard time or who feels shame, that they can see your greatness and know that they can get there.
Sure.
Isn't that your mission?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And, part of my journey is to narrow it down, because I have such a wide range of tools and such a wide range of living life that I have to understand that in order to really hit
Yes.
hard with my mission is to narrow it down,
Yeah.
and speak to that community and that age group of 12 to 22. What I would tell younger people is just wait. Just wait and be patient. But it's so counterintuitive to the world that they grew up in, where literally anything you want is at the touch of your fingers. So we're in a very difficult time in that I grew up in a time that there weren't cell phones. And like, if you weren't home, your mother didn't know where you were. And she just had to hope
Yeah.
that you'd come
Yeah.
home after school. And that was normal.
Mhm.
Imagine putting a mother in that position now.
No.
She
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to handle it. And rightfully so, because I should know where my child is at all times. I can air tag their ass. I can find where their phone is. I can FaceTime them, call them, see what they're doing. So again, I was born in a time that I got to see all that develop. And I truly believe that instead of shunning the younger generation, I want to understand.
Yes.
And I want to be able to connect with them. And there's so much value to what they know that we don't know. I'm not going to be one of those parents, oh, that's not music. This is music. I'm always growing. I still listen to new music every day, like shit that I like, don't like. I don't necessarily have to like it. It's not for me. But I listen to it and I try to hear it. And with that, I say somehow, and I guess here's the trick, is to crack the code and find a way to engage them in a manner where they understand that life is a marathon, that despite everything being instant gratification and everything being available to them, the one thing that is not available to you instantly in this world is success. It is not. I'm sure there's other things, and love may strike you like a bolt of lightning, so you can get that quickly, or lust, maybe, whatever. But true enduring love takes time. Tony Robbins teaches about the seasons of a relationship.
Do you believe in love at first sight, or just like suddenly?
I do.
I do too. I do
only because it happened to me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't love. It was lust at first sight.
But
so my wife and I will
isn't
be
that
the first
different?
to tell you.
Do
it
you
is
think
different.
soul
it
to
is.
soul, you could actually feel like this incredible bond with someone that you just met? Like, or you didn't even, like, something happened, like electromagnetically?
Something happened. It wasn't love.
Yeah.
But there was an instant holy shit moment. Like when we looked at each other for the first time, she looked away and I was like, she's hot. She's very, very hot. So I'm thinking as a man, and she's thinking as a young woman, but she's also like, before we even went on our first date, she's joking with coworkers, that guy's going to be my husband one day.
Yes. No, but she probably knew that.
She knew it.
She knew that.
Again, love at first sight, probably not. I mean, that's for the movies mostly. I'm sure there's people that could come on and tell us it's different. But for me, there was something sparked instantly between us, despite us not having our first date for a while, despite us, not.
You know what I think, though? Listen, this is what the issue is in this conversation. It's to operationally define the word love. I'm always telling people that. Semantics. Because you say love and I'm saying love. Your wife is saying love.
To everybody.
All different. So when I say love at first sight, I'm talking about that thing where she's like, I own him. He's mine. I'm marrying his ass. That thing where she doesn't know, but she doesn't know. She just like a soul connection. Something happened.
Her body knows, her soul knows.
We don't know what to say. What do we call that? I
don't know. It's beyond our understanding.
We should call it like or something like, there's no word. Like we actually named our dog I'm not.
Oh, that's funny.
Is that the funniest thing? It's such a side
I've heard
note.
you speak of your relationship too.
Oh, CJ,
yeah, it was amazing, and
I
know you got to, and you tell me, is it better to have loved and lost than never loved at all?
Well, I can tell you, I will tell you because now see now it's like I'm on your podcast. Now I'm going to
That's all
cry,
right. We're
but
here
I'm
for
going to
each
make you
other.
cry next. Okay,
That's
so
fine. It's not
basically,
hard.
it's actually, I never know if I'll cry when I talk about this, but basically, yes, my husband to me was the love of my life. Like he was my hero. Like he was like the mother I never had, because I was neglected I'm gonna cry. Like I was neglected as a child. So he was just like everything to me. He was like, and we had such a good relationship. We could talk about anything. I never felt like I couldn't say, I couldn't connect. But one of the things, and what better to have loved and lost? Well, oh, sorry. It is because it made me a different woman than I was. It made me, that kind of thing expands you as a human being. It makes you understand that the power of love and that's what has given me also a mission for marriage in general. Because I feel like people are selling themselves short, even when you're saying, and I don't want to criticize your marriage because I think you have a great marriage, but like, we don't have to fight for this.
Right.
We can stand head, heart, feet, all in the same spot. I tell people just no matter what that person brings to you, as long as you don't have to defend anything. You can be wrong. Like we would say things to one another and we would just be like, yeah, no, I get how you would feel that way. It wouldn't become like, oh, let me defend myself. It
Right.
would be the first step was always, I'm going to understand you. My agenda is to understand. So to understand is to love, and to be understood is to be loved, I think.
My
Yes.
gift is connection.
Yes.
And I mean connection from people of all walks of life, all colors, all backgrounds.
Yes.
And I think it speaks to my genuine just desire to be a good human being. And I have a tremendous amount of compassion. Tremendous.
You do.
And that's a gift. That's a gift that I've been given. And
Where'd you get it?
I don't know.
You
My
know.
mother is a good source of it,
Yeah,
but
but
it's
you know
far
more.
beyond, it's
It's
far beyond what she's given me. And I want to say that I was put in positions throughout my life where I needed to be in places of struggle. I needed to be around people and situations that weren't befitting of who I was or going to be, so that I could develop the compassion for those people, so that I could go help them. And I will give my mother credit for that. My mother was a social worker for the city of New York, and specifically for welfare.
yes.
And then for HIV/AIDS, when that became very prevalent, especially in the South Bronx or the poorer communities of already the poorest borough in New York City. And she always had compassion. And she, you know what? Damn, it is my mother's gift. But now you got me crying.
That
Um, Yeah, she told me stories. She was here like for Thanksgiving, and I was driving to the airport, and I was just getting a little background on the family and her story growing up. Being that I'm going to be out here on the circuit to better understand me. And she told me stories of, she would walk into basically crack house, to go meet her client. And there were situations where she's a fucking woman. She's by herself walking into a crack house to go help this person. And there'd be fucking 20 people in there, high off their face. And she's looking for the one person. And then just something protected her. Something. There was some energy. There was some lightning bolt. There was some, the guy on the corner, maybe like, what are you doing here, ma'am? And, she'd give him a few dollars and be like, make sure like I'm good or whatever. She was in situations she shouldn't have been in. And, I think that's why I had to go away for a couple of years. I wasn't a criminal. I committed a crime, and I was with people I shouldn't have been with and did something I shouldn't have done. And it landed me in prison for a couple of years. But I needed
yes.
to be there I needed to experience that so that I could develop the compassion I would need to then be where I am today. And boy, I've heard horror stories where it's easy to condemn people when you don't know their story. It's easy to condemn people when you take a stance of right and wrong, which you touched on in relationships. It's very hard to see the other person's side of the story, whether it be a murderer, criminal, or rapist, or burglar.
Yes.
And hear their side of the story and still have compassion.
Yes.
For their journey. And I've been blessed with that. And it starts with my mom. It starts with love. And I think I would like to say the world is missing that, but I don't think the world has ever had that. It's had people like that.
Yes.
But as a whole, it's wishful thinking to think that communities of large groups of people will think in that manner. It's the individuals that can bring this to light and affect lives around them, sure. But the greater energy of humankind does not operate in a compassionate manner. It never has, and it probably, unfortunately, never will. We strive to make sense and understand the limited knowledge that we have, and that creates teams and sides and belief systems that don't allow for other people's belief systems to come into yours. So all I can do is shine my light, shine my side of, what I've learned. And I've been told that by a lot of my peers where, the last 4 or 6 years in this country politically has been just polar opposites. I mean, we've seen it develop and delve into what it is now, which is, it's just gone like this.
Yeah, division.
Where you have to pick a side.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are we still falling for this?
Yes,
and I come to somebody who's here and listen, I used to be here, but now I'm right here. I'm in the middle. There is no right or wrong. And they're like, wow, you really you should talk about this. You get both sides, you understand. And I'm like, yeah, and why can't you? Because you realize when I tell you, something that, oh, okay, that makes sense. But you won't give the time of day to somebody else who believes on the other polar opposite side that they're entitled to believe whatever they want. And hence why it's called politricks, right? Because it is the way that a few thousand people in the government, not only in this country, but worldwide in any country, keeps control and power over the masses. It's divide and conquer. And again, human beings, unfortunately, all too easily fall in the trap. And hence why the relationship struggles. And you touched on something that the selfish part of me wanted to defend, but now I see why I didn't mention it until now, which was fighting for the relationship. Wasn't necessarily fighting because of right or wrong.
Yeah.
There are inclinations to do that in my relationship, but more so fighting to learn what I don't know. And bring a better version of me to the relationship.
Yes.
And we were just on a counseling call earlier today. And, our therapist, which she came up with a better name for herself than a therapist, which I thought was great, interpreter. So our interpreter.
Love that.
She said, she had canceled all her sessions today, but something called her to not cancel ours. It's the beginning of the winter solstice. And I called her a hippie jokingly because she's from California. And she kind of is, but in a beautiful way. And the winter solstice is the turning of the sun. It's the longest night, apparently. And it is also when the sun changes direction. And that was a beautiful metaphor for our session today and our relationship as a whole, which is she brought to light that over the last 15 months, we have made dramatic shifts in our relationship, which is 15 years old, 10 married. And again, it all points back to the whole topic of this conversation is going to be life is a marathon. And you got to learn how to run that race. You can't just strap up some sneakers and run a marathon.
Yes.
You've got to train for that bitch. And you got to train diligently. And you got to educate yourself on how to eat, how to run, how to pace yourself.
Yeah.
And life is the same thing. Life and marathons are the perfect metaphor for each other. Relationships that last and marathons in life are all tied in to the same metaphor, which is, are we just going with the flow and winging it, which so many people do?
Oh, God.
Or are we taking a concerted effort, making a concerted effort to learn the inner workings of our specific relationship? Because it's not like you can just read a book too. I mean, you can read a book and learn.
Yes, I agree.
But to bounce my ideas off of someone like you who's trained, so I'll call you the book. The book talks back to me. The book has an opinion of the things they've taken the time to learn. And that is why people are our greatest resource. And we don't have to believe the same things politically or gender neutrality, any of that shit for me to get value from you and you to get value from me.
Right.
But we've got to be open to it. And I think we're just so closed off. And this poisonous, beautiful tool over here of our phones just makes it that much harder to connect with others because we can easily connect to what makes sense to us. And it's readily available. And the algorithm just keeps feeding us that limited belief system. And then we just retreat to our corners. Podcasts, I've found are a great therapy for the people on them and also the people listening.
It is true. As we know, yes, I have to say that the through that period of time that you were just speaking, I'm like, oh my God, there were so many, like this nugget, that nugget, and I'm like, okay, I have to just say something about this because you said so many incredibly great things. One thing I want to say about this is the thing we were just talking about, operationally define a word. You're saying fighting and I'm hearing the different word. Yeah. But what you're talking about definiteness of purpose in your marriage. That's what you're talking about. The commitment to it. And I'm hearing struggle, right? Yeah. You see how human beings, and then to tie that into what you're talking about, like this division that's across the world, right? Like anything that divides, I think is not true.
Right.
How could it be true?
We're trained to just what makes sense to us. My therapist also said, my interpreter also said something beautiful in terms of, cultures come into relationships. I come from this loud, aggressive, loving, outwardly kind of upbringing. And she comes from a very reserved, very conservative, very quiet upbringing. So, things don't land with each other. Even after 15 years, I can share something that just doesn't land with her the way I want it to. And my limited belief is saying, oh, well, she didn't react that way. She must feel something toward me. We're so self-centered. We're so self-centered. And
I just did a marriage counseling session. I don't really see clients, but these people, they begged me to see them. So, and it's so funny because we were talking about like every one of us has an interpretation. We have a perception of the other person's perception of us. Yeah. And a blank face, right, is a space for us to paint whatever we want on it. And it's coming from within us. And like we were talking about emotional sobriety and what emotional sobriety is and what emotional drunkenness is, right? So it's like most of us are operating from like this external locus of control that you see your wife and she has like a straight face and I don't know what you're thinking, but like sometimes people will be like, oh, and then they create a story that's their story. And if you don't go inward first, you're immediately in a state of reaction to that person, right? Like every thought, feeling, action, behavior, anything is ours. Right. And we think it's our spouse or like, oh, I know they don't like me. No, it's because you feel insecure right now.
Right.
Actually. Right.
How people feel about you is not your business anyway.
No.
Right? But so many times we're guessing how the other person feels.
Yeah.
And listen, this shit ain't easy. Life ain't easy. Making sense of life ain't easy. You know what wasn't easy? And here's
tell me.
The juxtaposition of civilization and where we've come as a species. Life was harder physically back in the caveman hunter-gatherer days but it was easier because that's what nature designed us to be.
Simple.
Fight or flight. That was the only time, for the most part, that we felt stress, was when we were either out hunting or under attack. Whereas now it's the bills, it's the relationships, it's the jobs, it's the commute. I mean, we are just all day, every day, experiencing stresses that we weren't designed for.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not going to sit here on my high horse. It took me years to develop the limited patience and understanding of these things that I have. And there's still far more, way further to go.
But I asked you about, because you mentioned about, you were talking about compassion and the thing with your mom, and I just really wanted to address that because, and your stay in prison, I'll call it a stay. So basically, your luxury stay at the, yes. But I just think it's fascinating because I knew your mom was a social worker, but I did not know what your mom did. You know, I did that too. So I used to go in really, really dangerous neighborhoods and people would be like, what are you doing?
What are you doing here, white lady?
And you know why I was there? I was there to find that mom. I could cry, or that dad. So I could reunify, I could help them to become a person who could be reunified with their child. So I'm going to do whatever I can to get you there. And it was like life risking at times.
Yeah.
Very dangerous. Being in elevators. I know I was with gangsters. When I say gangsters, that's silly. Like a gang member. Right. And they would just, for some reason, people know love when they know when you're not judged. They know if you had, like, I think about, like, if you have a purpose and you're just walking, and, you know, I'm bringing up another scripture. It's not like I'm like a Bible thumper, but I think about Jesus was like that angry mob came to Jesus to kill him the first time. And he's like, it wasn't my time. And he just basically walked through them. So it's like when you know where you're going, like, no, I'm going to her. I'm going to find her because she has a child. Yeah. And then I'm thinking about, now you get sent to prison so that you can gain this through a different avenue.
I can see the world through a lens I would have never otherwise seen it.
I love that. You know, like I see like as like every struggle, like all the different things that I've been in, like whatever, all different crazy situations. Every time I'm going to judge somebody, I end up in a situation where I'm going to do the same exact thing that person did. I'm like, well, I'm just never judging anyone because I am capable of anything. Right. Yeah. And we just learn, like, judgment is the worst.
It is the worst. It is the worst. And we do it in our intimate relationships, and it poisons the well.
It does.
It poisons the well so just deeply.
Judgment is fear, Sean.
Yeah. We judge ourselves.
Yes.
Just today, you know, I'm on this mission, this mission of purpose, and I'm afraid at times. I'm afraid of my greatest self. I'm afraid of not knowing how to handle it. And I think admitting that fear is there, but embracing it and dancing with it, as I've learned through my studies and Tony Robbins' partnership, is dance with the fear. Don't run from it. Because if you dance with it, some beautiful things can happen. But if you run from it, you'll never accomplish anything. So you're afraid, but you move forward anyway. And
how does fear show up for you? Like, in what way? Does it call, like, I know
self-sabotage.
Yeah. Like how?
Self-sabotage. You take 3 steps forward to take 1 or 2 steps back, sometimes 4 steps back, only to catch yourself and have to work yourself out of a little hole. You know, with my weight loss, I lost tremendous amount of weight. I've done this numerous times in my life where at my heaviest, I used to weigh 354 pounds. I now, as of this morning, weighed, 240 more or less. I got down to 227 and then got up to 254 from like summer till a few weeks ago because I was enjoying my summer.
Yeah,
I was, but I was also sabotaging myself.
Yeah.
There's a gravitational pull. There's a thermostat. You'll hear Ed Milet, who you study under and who's a mentor of yours. as well as many other guys. You know, self-development is a lot of reshared information coming from students, because we're all students. Some of us are students at school, and we go get a job and we do what we do. And then some of us are students of life. And, you know, you set an internal thermostat for your life, and you'll always fucking keep coming back to it unless you set the temperature higher.
Yes.
And we have to make a full-on commitment to change our identity. I mean, I've had so many shifts. You know them because I've shared them in our engagements, but not drinking for me was, I went from the life of the party and the heavy drinker, you know, not fall on my face, not sloppy, not fucking, but I was that guy. I put a half a bottle away and still be going and fucking life of the party. Yeah. Sean's house, no problem. We're going to party. And now Sean is just not a drinker. Yes. And like that is lost on some people because it's like, you're never going to drink again. And I'm like, no, I'm not a drinker.
I love that. And I'm not a drinker.
I'm not a drinker. Mm-hmm. And it took some work to get to that point. But again, the things that I have done since getting sober, I'll never go back to that. And, you know, could I have another drink and then put it that? Maybe, but why take the chance of finding out? Yes. I don't know. I was never a one drink kind of guy. So, you know, anything I do, I go all in. And unfortunately, that included drinking and, you know, earlier in my life, drugs as well.
Yes.
Party drugs, but drugs nonetheless. And it's about identity shift and identity thermostat, same shit. It's who am I? Who do I want to be, more importantly? And then leaving the who am I now in the past. Like, don't even look back and say, well, I used to be that guy. I mean, you can put it in perspective. You'll never forget who you were. But I am now this person. Yeah. I am not a drinker. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's simple. And it's funny because I see people hang out around me now, the same people that used to party with me hard. Yes. And I'm like, I was the fucking guy pushing the party. Yeah. I was the guy, you know, I was the guy pushing people to drink more and have more fun. And now I'm like not drinking at all. And I see people drinking a little more reservedly. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, so I can have that power in, I'm not going to say a bad manner because I had great times drinking and partying, but I can do that on the flip side now for good and with positivity and moving people's lives forward instead of just having a good time over drinks and laughs and reminiscing. I can have a great time over building and creating a future that I never thought was possible. And these people may never have thought that was possible. And ironically, we'll take it back to, 13 years ago in a prison cell. I designed my life in a black and white composition notebook in the prison cell. Unbeknownst to me, I mean, I consumed hundreds of books while I was there. And I consumed, dozens of self-help books. And I read Tony Robbins' Unlimited Power, Unleash the Power Within. Yes. In prison. And I was able to practice some of the things I learned in a place where otherwise, people are just killing time. Yes. I learned emotional intelligence in that place by going through these anger management programs that taught me you didn't just get to anger and hurt someone. You were, there was disappointment, there was resentment, there was a buildup, there were things that happened to you, there were blockages that you didn't recognize, and you didn't go straight to anger. It's like layers of an onion. And they teach you these things that many people don't take the time to learn, don't have the discipline, the desire to learn, they're just passing the time. But for some reason, I picked up on all of it and I learned the emotional intelligence that I had. Again, I needed to be there. I needed to have that experience in my life so that I could be here. And that was 13 years ago. So it's not like I came out and everything was great. And, I still fucked up and wasted a lot of time, but I did build a life. And despite the challenges that came with that, I am here today. So all the obstacles that you overcome, and this comes for, this means everything to what I'm doing, which is to tell people that are young, whatever little hardships you have right now are nothing compared to what you're going to experience. So embrace the hard things now. Embrace falling on your face now. Understand that it's all part of the process and that it will pass and it will make you stronger for it. So that's the knowledge that I don't necessarily have. And I'm not going to, unfortunately, get that message across to everyone. But if I can get it across to a couple of people who get it across to a couple of people, I'm winning. And I've got to try.
Yes.
This itch that I have, it can't be a
Yes.
mistake. This
No.
talent that I have, it can't be a
No.
mistake. It would be such a waste. And I think that's why I was so married to, drinking and good times and kind of just numbing
Yes.
that itch, numbing that desire that I had
Yes.
to be the best me. And that's why it's scary, because I have like huge ambitions.
Yes.
And I'm just getting started. And
Yes.
it's crazy when you decide, whoever you are, to start on your mission, how quickly things just start to fall into place for you when you're doing
Yes.
what you're supposed to be doing and you're
Yes.
stepping into your purpose. And I truly am blessed, and I'm definitely continuing down this road, and we're going to impact some lives for sure. And with your help, I'll definitely be calling at you at some point in the future.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. I just want to say to you that we are all together a part of the Mission Awake, a mission that's going to stop the mediocrity that's plaguing all of us. So if you got something here today, I ask that you would be a part of this mission and you'd share it with whoever you can. Take a screenshot of the show and share it on your Instagram. If you are looking for me, you can find me on social media platform Instagram, Alison Answers, or Lager Counseling Services. And give us a review and subscribe, if you could, to YouTube, Alison Answers. That's where you're going to get a lot of content. I drop stuff every day, goofy stuff, all different kinds of stuff. 5-minute videos that just get you moving in your day. Have a great week. See you next time.